those, check out his website. Check out his website at zenbitchslap.com. Paul, do you want to start with a reading?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Make sure everybody's muted here. All right. All right, I'm at the bottom of page 124. Second paragraph, third paragraph, just about halfway down, starting with showing. Or we could start at the paragraph itself. So, starting with this painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problems. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, of their hiding places. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought of that. In God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them.
Yes. Can you hear me, Jacob?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So, Paul, alcoholic. Thanks everybody for showing up. Yeah, this is obviously the spirit of passing it on and the idea of service, and to realize that uh, we're in the process of like the greatest recycling event where what we have deemed to be having of no value gets to be used greatly in the helping of others, and in the helping of others we're helped. So the old idea is we have it by giving it away. Now there's a statement in AA I don't agree with, which is you have to have it to give it away. I believe if you're willing to give it away, you'll have it, yeah, or you'll be had by it, really. Yeah. So it's just a different movement. I don't believe that my experience doesn't tell me that I had alcoholism. It tells me alcoholism had me, and the same thing with the idea of self. So yeah, this is about, obviously it's the family afterward, and about how valuable what we deem to be incredibly unvaluable, our life experiences and our failures and our successes can be in showing others what's possible. And it's just a beautiful movement, you know. Again, I've been speaking to my nephew, my oldest sister's first son, and he's just got back into the program 24 days, I think, today. And he's been calling me every day from Long Island, where I grew up. And, I'm very happy he's taking advantage of this another possibility of maybe so that he can be done with this slavery and have a life before he's done, before he passes away. So, yeah, I'm incredibly honored and have a lot of gratitude towards recovery. I think you learn a lot while you're in it, obviously, and sometimes you learn that, sometimes it's a disservice to people trying to help them stay away from their bottom, that that bottom is going to be the necessary ingredient for a change to occur. So a lot of things become more intimate instead of so black and white. A lot of times the idea of doing service is being claimed by the head, and you become a great service master, and the bondage of self thrives in that situation. So, yeah, basically the platform again is just this idea that there's an activity going on that seems to have a large amount of what we call our attention and interest involved with it. And that activity could be seen as a parasite constantly convincing or living from the being convinced that I am the parasite. And there's a forgetting of all the possibilities the idea of a host would provide. And so the parasite has me basically neutralized by my act of being identified as it, or its act of me being identified as it. I don't believe I'm doing that. I believe there's an activity that's doing it that I take to be me. So, yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paul. Let's see, do we have any hands? No hands? So no hands as of yet.
Well, Jacob, I'll just say, the platform here is based on the statement on page 64, being convinced, which means a present tense state, that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Not only concerning, when we're doing the fourth step, but basically a statement of what's happened and is happening. We're being defeated by something foreign to us, and that's called self, by its manifestations through us or in our life. And the real underlying question is, how does it have so much carte blanche entrance into all the affairs and the experiences of my life? How can something foreign constantly defeat me, even though its hostility is revealed, its agenda is revealed, its myopic view is revealed over and over again by any life run on self-will hardly being a success, that self-centeredness is the root of the whatever. This whole idea of self-centeredness means our whole life is centered on this idea of self, and we're not one, in a way. We're the us that it says so clearly. It says, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, has defeated us. They're two different things he speaks of. He talks about what's defeating us, which is self. It's not us defeating us. This is why I don't believe we manufacture our own misery or we're the problem. I don't believe that. Because if we were the problem, Jesus, that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body would seem to be a hopeless state of mind and body. Quite a lot if I'm the problem. How am I going to get out of that if I'm it? But the beautiful news is I'm not it. Yeah? So we do all the steps, we do the inventory, we make amends, we take responsibility for a broad view of our role in things, but in time we see something else's role in things. Yeah? And we call it self in recovery. Other people call it something else in other groups. Yeah? But let's go with the term self. And it's not an ego. It's the feeling of the one who has an ego. It's the feeling of the one that's always being implied and insinuated and referred back to and just historically assumed to be the case, pictured as this body that has changed unbelievably. I don't look like I did 6 years ago. I don't look like I did when I was a kid. So it's a stretch. It's a stretch to think that this whole experience has been based on this one thing, this body called Paul, I don't know. And I feel like a lot of things have taken me over, but not with the hostility or with the length, or, the amount of time it has run the show and the hostility in its running the show is if I've been taken over many times, there's been nothing like the takeover of the hostility of alcoholism or addiction. nothing, nothing close so far. So, and in all its forms, whatever vehicle it used, sex addiction or eating or drinking or drugs or fucking workaholic, whatever. There's a lot of forms it takes, but it's the manifestation of self that's defeating us through those forms, through those modalities. Yeah. And therefore the defeat looks very similar, even though we got it there through different means. Maybe some people was drugs, some people was sex, some people was codependency, whatever. But the defeat looks quite similar in all the cases. Yeah, because we're not being defeated by all these individual, unique things. We're being defeated by one parasitical movement, which its strategy is to convince us it's us, so that we don't see it as self. Because if you could see it as self from us, the possibility of being free from it would become available. It would be obvious for a second or two, and there would be like a landing, on D-Day or something. There would be a landing on Self Day, and then the battle would turn, because we would recognize I'm not that. Instead of trying to be free as self, we would be free from self. And I think it's monumental because that direction change affects every step of the way after it. Every step of the way now is set by that direction. You're either in the state of faith in finite self, or the better way, which is faith in the infinite. Yeah. So, yeah, I just keep harping on it because that's the important point to me. It's not how. There's experts on every sentence of every description of the steps. Yeah, that's fine. But I hadn't heard a clear diagnosis of what actually is allowing self to defeat me over and over and over again. There must, because after a few defeats, you would probably surrender or, do something to change the course of those defeats. Why is it over and over again, year after year, that there's an activity that seems to defeat us by its manifestations through us? I can't believe anything other would allow that to happen, which is the act of being identified as it. Yeah. If I keep taking manifestations of Stanley as mine, and I keep getting defeated by Stanley's manifestations, and I call them mine, I must be in the act of being identified as Stanley without knowing it. And the freedom wouldn't be managing the manifestations of Stanley. That would be the beginning when the fire is still going. But the freedom would be recognizing I'm not Stanley. Yeah? So I wouldn't be beholden to its manifestations, so I wouldn't call resentment's mine. I would call it as a resentment. I would call it as fear, not my resentment. Not my harms done to others, but harms done to others based on ignorance, based on a way of looking at things called self-centeredness, where I don't see how I'm going to affect others in the pursuit of what I wanted, and I don't seem to care. Yeah. So this is for me fundamental, and I felt it was the one thing lacking in the program, a clear recognition of the exact nature of what's going on. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it seems so clear to me that the same impetus for me to find relief in drugs and alcohol is the same relief that I was seeking to try to find stillness or peace, or like it hit me like a wave just now, like how much of my life was spent avoiding people or avoiding situations because of wanting peace or salvation for this me. Like this me says in my head, I don't feel like it, or I don't want to do that, or I just want peace, or I just want to be away. But in fact, that thing inside me doesn't even feel. Like there's no feeling about it. It doesn't feel, right? It's I don't feel like it. Well, it can't feel anyways. It's a false statement. There is no I, right? It's
Yeah.
it's so obvious. Um yeah, I'm just kind of thrown aback.
It's so obvious sometimes, but for some of us, it has to be pointed out
Yeah.
for it to become obvious. The obviousness of it doesn't do us much good until it becomes obvious to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
self, but to us.
Yeah.
And then maybe I had it. It was so clear, clear as day. This one day I was reading that how it works, and I had read it many, many times. And then I came upon that sentence, and this one time it was clear that self wasn't me. It, it was it was a name that was representing a foreign pathogen or a parasitical movement or a demonic possession, whatever you want to call it, but it was other than me, other than us, let's say. And as soon as that happened, the possibility of being free from it crystallized because that possibility had been crippled by the identification as the problem. So I was trying to be free as self without knowing it, which falls under the statement of self can't get out of self. I had no idea that that's what was most of the activities that I was under was basically could be framed as trying of self trying to get out of self. I was trying to be free as self, and I was trying to be free from self as self. So once that was noticed, it never was unnoticed. It just became a platform, and I started looking at the inventory process, especially in recovery, in a different light. And I stopped calling resentments mine. Yeah, I stopped calling. First of all, I think fear is off because it's mostly mental anxiety we're under that sort of triggers the emotional fear, the fear of the emotion of fear. But it's not, it's usually the emotion of fear is triggered by an apparent threat in your day. Yeah, not by thinking of next week. Yeah, I think it's developed an activity that can trigger or mimic fear, a reaction of fear, but not based on an apparent threat, based on mental activity, usually out of what's not happening. That's incredible to me. Yeah, so I mean, so I stopped calling shit that wasn't mine, and I saw a huge difference over quickly and very much over time. Yeah, and also you're not going to do a fearless and thorough inventory on what you call yours. There's too much investment in saving your face or shit like that. Yeah? The fearless and thorough inventory is more like a business inventory, and you don't own the business. So you can go there and say, hey, those pants suck. You're not going to sell any of them. Yeah? So you can suddenly you can be fearless and thorough because you're doing an inventory not of you. You're inventorying this foreign occupation, this foreign possession. Yeah? And you have such a clarity around it. The, where the clarity ends is when what the with the identification as it. We don't have the clarity about that, or maybe hopefully we do. But I didn't see that it was a basic understanding in the community. Yeah. And, no one sat me down and really explained that weird statement, self can't get out of self. Yeah. So I found yeah, the light turned on in this one room, and I found that light in that one room really lights up the whole rest of the house. Yeah. So, yeah. And there we are. That's why we're here. Pretty much. It was like a pit bull. Something grabbed this Paul, and he, I've just been sharing it, or being, I've this has allowed it to be shared, let's say, because it just shows up, and with the hopes that what this understanding has done in my life, it can possibly do in yours, yeah, so that we can all start traveling lighter and have a new basis, and that basis is reliance on a higher power, not on self. Yeah, by being clear, we're not that. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good to be here. Glad glad it all happened. It's all happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we got a question from Mike from UK, Mike O, asking you to unmute, Mike.
Hi, Paul. Good to see you. Thanks for this platform. I've got a lot out of it, and got a question. I'm struggling with balance at the moment. Balance between work, AA and my recovery, and family. And sometimes I put AA first because I know if I don't put AA first, then I won't have the other two. But I find that when I'm working extremely long hours and then I have the opportunity for some time off to spend time with my family, I get guilty. I get guilty because I feel that I should be working, and yet when I'm working, I feel that I should be with my family. And I have a lot of arguments with self, especially on my morning walks with my dogs. And then I feel basically, I come to the conclusion, yes, it's all about balance. But then I feel guilty because I haven't actually spent more time with the family, but I know that I should be spending more time with AA, but I also need to work to provide for the family. It's almost like a merry-go-round, and just wondering if you'd had any reflections on that, please.
Well, yes, I would surrender uh, those topics over to the higher power. Yes, and let it bring you to a point of balance instead of you seeking balance. You would have to know what balance is to seek it, and we don't. Yeah. So we find out about balance by being put in it. Yeah. And again, and also the thing that feels guilty isn't you. It's just trying to pin it on you.
Mm.
See, the head talks as if it's you, and very, very, very rarely does it get questioned at that point. The you is taken, and then you're concerned about all the worrying you're doing. Yes? Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The head, when it's let's say lines show up in the play, it says you've been in this play the whole fucking time. Yeah, it's just incredible. So, and it's just like a very nonchalant assumption that, oh, of course it's Mike who's feeling guilty. No, it isn't. It's a head saying Mike's feeling guilty. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. This is the bondage of self. We walk through a day listening to an interpretation of life based on the story of Mike. Yeah? And if you really look at it, sometimes the narration is from like 1983, trying to be pasted over 2021. It's so freaking obvious. You're like on a loop. You know what I mean? You ever notice there's these radio channels that they have someone who speaks on it, but it's not like a live DJ. It's just a tape. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing is tape. They have loop music and they have a loop sort of live DJ. And and you're walking around and you're assuming, oh, I really like that DJ. I love to meet him. There's no fucking, he's not even close to the radio station. They just taped it and then patch it to the music, and there you go. You know, this is what happens. So it isn't Mike that feels guilty, and it isn't Mike that's looking for a balance. It's taking that topic to imply a Mike, you see? So it says the topic of balance applies a Mike. All right, so let's obsess over that topic. And just like you said, when it's at work, it's thinking about the family. When it's at the family, it's thinking about the work. You see it? So its reason doesn't make any sense because it switches ponies during the race. Yeah. If you're at work, it says you should be more with your family. If you're with your family, you should be at work. You don't see it. It's insane. Yeah. If the truth was you should be at work, then it should have shut up when you were at work. But there's no truth involved. It just bounces from one to the other. If you're in Hawaii, you're thinking about New Jersey. If you're in New Jersey, you're thinking about Hawaii. It doesn't want, it doesn't, it wants you to be in its mental here. It doesn't want you to be here. Yeah. So it can't take you anywhere. It can't erase the fact of this moment. So what it does, it disguises it with a lot of mental here, which is mostly made out of what's not happening. Yeah. So at the moment you're at work, the family relation or being engaged with your family isn't happening. You're at work. Yeah. And then when you're with your family, you're not at work. Yeah. We can't even get that clear. And then we want to start going off on philosophical, metaphysical ideas. We don't even recognize what's happening here and now. I mean, it's insane. So, yeah. But yeah, to me, it's always a mittens of powerlessness. Yeah. I wouldn't know what balance was if it ran me over, basically. I've come to know it because it's happened in this life. Yes.
Yeah.
I recognized it because something brought it about. I didn't recognize it and drove there because I would be extremely unbalanced about balance, really. Yeah. So this is the spirit of the life, in reliance on something greater than self. I'm outmatched most of the time, and I'm in an admittance of that, and then things work out. Yeah. They do. And it's obvious I had nothing to do with it. And that obviousness has been, maybe it was like a henna tattoo in the beginning. Now it's pure ink. It's just obvious I can't pull this shit off. But something can. And I'll let it. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Yeah. And in doing so, a lot's revealed. And in my case, mostly what's revealed is really not of me. It tells because it shows me what I'm not, and then I find out what I am. Instead of trying to find out what I am from what I'm not, the truth tells me what I'm not, and I find out what I am. Yeah, it just works better. So, yeah. So don't listen to, it's not like you can't listen to it. There's a huge difference between hearing and listening. I hear the chatter, but actually I don't pick up many specific words anymore. It's just like a rumbling, like water going over rocks. It switches topics, but I'm not following it. So it makes like a sound, like a water fountain, in a way. In a way. I have no idea most of the time really what's being narrated. It switches things so much. It's just it's like a stumbling and a rumbling and a bumbling of incoherent. It's like copy and paste, incredibly. First it's, wait a minute, no. I should be in Iceland. Oh, it just goes on and on. Yeah. That's hearing it, yeah. The listening to it is sort of the bondage of self, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you're keenly listening to the head, you're up the ass of self, so to speak. Yeah, in a way. Yeah. You're not, but that's sort of the experience. So, and how can I stop listening to it? You can't. Yeah. That occurs by doing and not doing a lot of things. Yeah. And that doing and not doing on a broad level is represented by the way of life or the design of living, and then there's a lot of nuance and intimacy and all that that will come about. Yeah? Yeah. But for the broad design of living, we found, most of us here have found recovery, the recovery program, which is pretty damn sound. And then in that, there's a lot of room for improv, you know? Yeah. Yeah. But the one theme always stays, in my view, is that I'm not managerial quality, for sure. That which is speaking up there is not managerial quality. Yeah? It's like I told you, this whole idea of faith in the finite self. I remember when I was going to do a talk up in Massachusetts in America. Beautiful rural area. We got there late, and just no one's around, and suddenly we come near this railroad crossing, and there's all this excitement. The police lights are on and shit like that. So they stop us, and we asked them what happened, and then they said, well, a lady was listening to her GPS, and it had to turn right on the railroad tracks. And basically, she had so much faith in the GPS, even though she was hearing the undercarriage of her car fucking fall apart, she kept driving down the tracks because the GPS is saying, you're 50 feet from your destination. That would be faith in finite self. That's a perfect demonstration of faith in finite self. Yeah? We're listening to this thing, and we're living out its conclusions, which are insane. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Faith, trusting in the infinite would have been, hey, I gotta stop the car. You know what I mean? You think the tracks are gonna run out? No, they're gonna go on for quite a while. You better stop the car. Yeah. So she had to get pulled out. It was a whole giant thing. Yeah. This is a crazy GPS. Yeah, it is. It has the oldest maps. It doesn't get you anywhere. It used to get me to institution, jails, and death pretty well. That's pretty much, it knew how to get me there, for sure. Get me to being right, yes. Vindictiveness, yes. Blaming others, yes. Yeah. It's all rooted in that, truly. And I don't know how it's going to change the basis of where your attention and interest lies. I would hope a sober assessment of what it's like to be led by this thing has opened you up for a possibility of having that faith removed from self and then put into the infinite. Yeah. And knowing I can't make that happen, or I can't provide the transportation for that delivery, there's a surrender. There's an admittance that I can't pull off what I need to have pulled off, really. And then I rely on something greater than me. And I hope that seems to make me available and present for others, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so don't take this, see, the narration, see, the only difference in mine was yours, it would be Paul feeling guilty. See, it implies there's a feeling guilty, and it just gives, when it downloads through you, it's framed as Mike, and when it downloads in me, it's framed as Paul. And it's like that identification as Paul and Mike that keeps you on the hook of the idea that you're guilty. Yes, you see it? Yeah. It's not unusual. Everyone's getting the same downloads. The only difference are nouns and, yeah, but it's the same. You're at work, you're thinking you should be with your family. You're with your family, you should be at work. That's what it does. Yeah. I mean, it's funny if you're before it. Yeah, it's enslavement if you're after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're taking yourself to be its idea of Mike, you're basically after it and you're prone to its effects, yeah? If there's a sense of spirit, you're before it and now its effects don't get to you as much, yeah? Because you're before it. But if you're after it, it's sort of like if you're downwind, you're going to get hit with the shit. If you're up here, you won't, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone wants to stay in this position and have it different. It doesn't work out that way. If you're before thought, thought will lose the power it has when you're after thought. It will, yeah? Because you'll see it. You'll see thought from what you are instead of being what you are through thought, yeah? You'll see thought from what you are. It's different, completely different, really. Yeah. And that's true. We are before thought, for sure. Yeah. What allows thoughts to be noticed is us. Yeah. We are the light that allows thoughts to be noticed. We are that light. Yeah. Without us, there would be no thoughts, obviously. Yet we seem to be had by thoughts every day. Seem to be. It's not true. But the mic is the representation of being had by thoughts. Paul is the representation of being had by thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, this is why we talk about an AA, a spiritual condition. Basically, it's just not a mental condition. That's all. That's the important point of it. You know, give it another name, it doesn't matter. It's just really not a mental condition. Yeah. The mental condition being so dominant is what gives us an interpretation where we don't see it to be any other way. That's all because of the dominance of the mental condition. When that gets diminished by living the life of recovery, which it does, yeah, then other conditions have some influence. They start to have stronger influence in your life, and basically you respond better. You do. Whatever you are grows better in the pot and the soil and the light of recovery than it does in active addiction. Yeah? Now, we can't move ourselves to that new pot, but we can open up to be moved to that new pot. Yeah? We can. By doing what? By admitting the first step, basically, and starting there. Hey, I'm powerless over this shit. And my life's unmanageable. Now you'll find that it's your managing it that makes it unmanageable later, but that's like the first salvo of relief is the first step, being clear about that. You admit it, tell the truth. Yeah. And then you move to the second step and you observe, now that you're going to, let's say, recovery, you haven't drank in 5 weeks. I've come to believe that something is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself because I couldn't stay sober myself, and now I'm 5 weeks sober. There you go. And then the third step is just a decision, yeah, based on your old employer's record that maybe it's best to sort of apply to be under a new employer. Being all powerful, it will take care of you. And you've been taken care of terribly by the other one. So you'll be taken care of by this new employer. If you stay close to it, you can't be far from everywhere, and perform his works well. And who's going to define what his works are? They could be anything. Yeah, and maybe you're doing a great job performing its works already. So maybe you've completed the agreement to be taken care of a day at a time. Hallelujah. Yeah. Now let's look at, because we can't fulfill the decision we've made. It's just a declaration. We have to do 4 through 9. We have to do the working steps to initiate that real change. We're bringing like the flesh and the blood into the third step spirit. Yeah, like feeling, yeah, that idea of surrender and feeling that you're taken care of. Yeah, instead of feeling you're never going to be taken care of and you don't deserve it anyway, but feeling yes. So now you do. Why do we make a decision on the third step? Because we're already occupied by other power. let's say a lower power called self. Yeah? And it's not willing, or it's never going to surrender to the higher power. Yeah? We need to do certain things through 4 through 9 that sort of makes it malleable enough, that weakens it so that the higher power now has no real resistance. Yeah, even though you think you shouldn't be sober, you're still sober. Even though you said, I really wanted to get high, you didn't. Yeah, so now the game has changed. Yeah, a higher power now is involved and it's dominating the lower power. And that seemingly hopeless person now is recovered. Woo! Hallelujah. And hopefully all that will motivate you to be of service to others and practice these principles in all your affairs as best you can. Realizing your best probably isn't that good. So surrender and see what happens. Yeah. And you live that agenda, step 12. It becomes that you're in the habit of being sober. So you live like that. Yeah. And all sorts of amazing things happen along the way. And hopefully, you finally got to the root of the problem and seen you're not that. Yeah. And see how the thought system supports being that, how your memories support being that, how this world supports being that, and you're not that. Hallelujah. Yeah. Yeah, and then you enjoy peace of mind, you feel that consciousness, that presence come through, all that stuff becomes intimate. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to go. Maybe it's nice to go to a beautiful place to feel peace. You feel peace wherever you are because you're of that peace. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks, bro.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Michael. And we got a question from Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose from
Ruby asking you to unmute.
Hi, hon.
Nice to see you, Ruby.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. I'm just checking in to say, gosh, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be with all you and having someone be able to put words to things that have always, you call it the download. I also called it the download, and they started at different ages, but I never had anyone to speak to that could find the comfort in these words, and you just have such a way to put it into words. And I heard something the other day that you said that someone had said to you, well, you know, I've been selfing for days, and then you said, oh, well, the only way to do that is with yourself. And I found that really interesting. And I'm just, you know, it's just been whirling around in there because it appears that you can see when that's going on, but it really appeared as what's going on. And because there was always more than a few things yakking away in there that I was aware of. But I never knew what to do with it. And now it's kind of funny, like you said, when you get to that place where you watch it and you think, well, this is just the weirdest shit I've ever seen. And that is exactly what it is. And what has happened is 3 of the gals that I work with are open to these discussions, and the laughter and the joy and the openness and the calm and the peace that they have in their lives now from this. And, you know, you just can say a few words and everybody will just drop it. And then, you know, we're in that free range. I used to call it free range humans. Like, and then you said that, and I just have really enjoyed this, and it's just brought just such gratitude into life. I just wanted to thank you. And if you could just say a few things about that selfing. itself.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the thing is, see, selfing is mental activities. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I mean by the term selfing. So there is
Okay.
never a self, and there's never been a self, but there's selfing, and in that selfing, when we listen to it without knowing certain things, the selfing is used as a way of implying self. Yeah. So and then the implied self now believes it's the one that was selfing. You see? So the selfing is an activity. Something is derived by noticing that activity in a certain way. Now that's to go over every nut and bolt of that would be like mechanics illustrated. But let's just say, so there's this narration that we're a someone that's constantly being played. There's never a someone that's displayed or completely articulated. It's just an assumption underlying all the yapping, so to speak. And then we, as the audience, picture ourselves as that which is being implied by the narration. Yeah. So
Hmm.
suddenly you can learn about the narration and call it selfing, but you may not see the product that gets produced. But people will call me and say, "Oh, I've been selfing all day." You see, that's exactly what the selfing is implying. There's a one, yeah. And in this case, it's so actually it's a beautiful example because it's implied to the exact activity that's being used to imply the self. So now the self says it's the one who's selfing. So when you see that, uh, so when people call me, I say, well, that's basically the product of what we're attempting to talk about. You're now speaking from the product that was implied through the selfing. So come back, grasshopper. No. Yeah. So it's like, so that's the idea of self can't get out of self. Yeah. We see we can see the selfing, but we think we're seeing it as an aspect of self. Yeah.
Yes.
Now the seeing of it's clear, but how it gets in time, how it gets interpreted isn't clear for many of us. So the seeing of it is clear, but then there's the idea of the seer that's supplants the seeing, and now that's where the bondage lies. So now the seer of self is an aspect of self that's not being seen. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Good.
so if you just take it and let it play out a little longer, you'll see both aspects.
Mm-hmm.
If you just think, oh, I've recognized I'm selfing and I should stop selfing, that's not it. Yeah,
That's
you saw
selfing.
the objectification of self. You're not seeing the active subjectiveness of selfing. Yeah,
Okay.
as the claimer of the one who's doing everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
So see, the thing is, that's why I don't like, we use the word self because it's in recovery, but I don't like the word self because it implies there's something already. Self. And I don't believe that. I believe there's selfing that implies there's already a self. But there isn't already a self that's selfing. You see?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So we had it the other day, the other point with Mike. So the head is saying it's having a feeling of guilty, and how it's having it is as Mike, yeah? But how it arrived there, it had to claim the feeling of guilt to imply the Mike. There wasn't a Mike there before the feeling of guilt. The Mike was arrived at by the claiming of the feeling, and the feeling was given a name. Oh, it's a guilty feeling, which it may not be true anyway. Yeah? So
Yeah.
in fact, the guilty feeling came up and then there was a claiming of that, and then Mike was made, and now Mike thinks it had the guilty feeling. That's
Damn.
the mechanism of selfing. I can't put it any clearer. That's how it goes.
No,
That's how.
it's excellent. Excellent.
So if you can point it out over and over again, it gets through sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there'll be a lot of revealed about self, but there's not much revealed about self can't get out of self. That's you got to look at that. Yeah, that has to be a feeling of distance in the mechanics of selfing. Yeah, when you see it actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it doesn't trigger an impliedness. You're just not it. That's all. That's the only thing it means. Is it doesn't mean the selfing stops. It doesn't. It means the mission that can never be completed. You don't start as if it's already completed. The selfing just dangles and sort of loses momentum. You know, its momentum is when the imply that you're already a self gets delivered. So if that doesn't get delivered, you just see selfing as almost it's like an unrequited, unfulfilled desire. It's just agitated. It just doesn't get, yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
mechanical.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So why take it so personally? And it's nothing to do with volition. You did not, like my friend talks about recovery in a way I like. He says, alcoholism is a fate disease, not a volitional disease. Yeah, you have it or you don't have it. So a fate ordained whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a way, the selfing is an aspect of the brain and how it organizes its interpretation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like a movie with a soundtrack, but then suddenly the soundtrack totally dominates the movie. That's the craziness, yeah? It's all right to have a narration as I'm going to Italy, but not to, you know what I mean? I don't have to wait for the narration to tell me I'm in Italy. I'm aware I'm in Italy before its whole story about Paul being in Italy kicks off. You know what I mean? I'm here.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened. People, the condition a lot of us are in, we are totally dependent on this idea of self, that we've gone to sleep about living and we've been put to sleep by an interpretation. Yeah. And, sometimes the only way we wake up is from a big incident, a traumatic event or something, you know what I mean? Something, a near-death experience, that's a little too much. Most of us can't fucking live through those things. Yeah, to have to go through an extreme fucking thing just to wake up for a second seems insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we're always awake. Yeah, so I'm not looking for a major spiritual electrocution. I'm just fucking, trotting along dog shit awareness.
Right.
It's just, it may not be as exciting, but it's completely much more reliable for sure. Yeah.
Well, I find that 6 and 7 has been just extremely helpful in all of this. When I don't understand, I just go there because
Yes.
it didn't say what I was supposed to offer up. It doesn't say I sometimes I give that up.
Yes.
'Cause
Well, let's say you come into recovery, you're like in a consequential level, right? Your house is a mess. If you have a house, you're going to have to get movers in and go to the dump and all this shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you continue, you're brought more into the blueprint room of how, and you see the patterns of how self defeats you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before the defeat. And it's much easier to remove like blueprints of a house than to remove a house. Yeah, the blueprints aren't. Yes, they're very light. Yeah, you're not paying rent. You don't have a mortgage. Yeah, so you're not in it with that huge drive to get out of it, which is the bigger in of selfing. Yeah, your life is pretty chilled now, so you can see shit before they
Hmm.
get to a construction. Let's say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much easier to get out of a blueprint of a house than a house. Yeah. So, that's why we do the inventories, is to see the patterns of how self has defeated us so that we can recognize it before the defeat instead of after the defeat, which is a little late. Yeah. Hey, most of us come in after the defeat of self, yeah, to recovery. It's not before the defeat, it's after the defeat, yeah, of this idea
Yeah.
of self. But now recovery is seeing selfing before the defeat, yeah.
Yes.
So that life takes a different turn. It goes in another direction. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. In other words, what needs to be changed hasn't even taken a strong form yet. It's very difficult to get out of a real problem. Yeah, it's not difficult to see you're not in something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thanks, hon.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ruby. Well, Paul, I don't see any more hands up.
Oh, that's cool.
I got a quick question, which is, it seems even the positive emotions, we often get in the way of our positive emotions by claiming them. Yeah, like I'm feeling this. It's that. Sorry, I had it and then lost it. But it's along those same lines of being sad or being fearful. But when the positive emotions even come up, we get in the way of those by claiming them.
Well, we don't claim them. The head claims them. And
Right,
if
right, right.
the head claims them and puts it into the story, and that story has some legs, then yes, it alters it. So, like in my story, when I was feeling good, my head would say, you're a fraud. They're going to find out. So the feeling good would be minimized very quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
if there was a possibility of feeling a little uncomfortable, it was basically saying that was the first step in a lifelong depression, you know? So the it was such an extreme contrast, it got to be noticed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I was feeling great, it was being contracted. When I was feeling maybe a little uncomfortable, it was going to be elongated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, getting a sense of that was basically uh, the theme of the interpretive life. I'd like to beg out of that. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. So, any bad feeling, I basically deserve it.
Right.
Every good feeling, I basically don't deserve
Yeah.
it. That's a pretty. that's a yeah. You're not going to get a good hand at that poker table too much. A good hand's going to scare you more than a bad hand, really. That's crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's slavery. Yeah. The interpretation becomes a form of slavery. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. And therefore, well, it's all rooted in that statement on 53 without knowing it. Without knowing it, we don't have a chance, really. But when we start to know it in the light of, let's say, recovery, and bring it to step 6 and 7, things can be altered and changed, yes. Not by us, yeah, but by this power. We can say that power is us, but let's keep it in the AA way. A higher power, yeah.
Hmm.
Something other than the mental activity, let's put it that way. So
Right.
how the mental activity sees things is very, very myopic and very limited. You can see things from another view, like a win-win view, an inclusive view. This is what you grow into when there's a loss of interest in self as you stay in recovery. You start seeing win-win situations. You see it's not either or, it's inclusive. I can do this and I can do that. Yeah, it's not like I've got to do this and not that. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
you can start seeing the viewer that you're looking through gets more panoramic or more landscape than fucking myopic focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's not more seeing, but there's seeing more. Yeah. Yeah. More possibilities. And this is just an observation of an effects that you didn't set off. You didn't start. You've been under the influence of recovery, and this is some of the effects. Yeah.
I don't know why, but speed reading's coming to mind. Like the biggest obstacle in speed reading is subverbalizing and like talking to yourself in your head while you're reading. And the fact that just seeing awareness, dog shit awareness, can understand what's on the page without us having to say it to ourselves is amazing. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Some books you can go through in like 30 seconds
Yeah.
because they're not saying much. Others you love to stay slow, like Dostoevsky or someone,
Sure. Sure.
yeah, because that's incredible uh, insight. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like Dostoevsky. He was a tough. What an incredible. You know, he's. I just heard that he dictated all his books.
Oh
Dictated them.
wow.
He didn't
Wow.
even write them.
Yeah.
Someone else wrote them. He dictated. That's incredible, man. It's
Yeah. I
awesome.
think same with Rumi.
Yeah.
Rumi as well. Yeah. He would go into the spinning and his verse would come through and his scribes
Yeah.
would write it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because Rumi had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Don't pin it on Rumi. And on a much, much, much smaller scale, Paul has fucking nothing to do with it. Don't pin it on Paul.
Yeah.
We're just spinning. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. But, you know, you were there for the 800 rotations. So there's something that comes out of it. And you can imply an intimacy with that whole dance. Yeah. Because you've been under its influence.
Mhm.
Something has moved through you, and the hose gets an intimation of it by its moving through. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the seeing, uh, well, it really wasn't about changing anything. It was just seeing what was going on, really. Yeah.
Wow.
Underneath,
Yeah.
see, there's certain levels that are more easily known than others. So there's the consequential level where you know something after it happened. Yes, that's a very slow level. Yeah, you know something after it happened. Then
Mhm.
there's other levels where there's more speed in it, where you can see something before it happens, and then a lot of times it doesn't happen. Yeah, and you get an intimation of your role here, which is an incredible role. Yeah, you are that which makes a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body to be hopeless state of mind and body. The seemingly is that it what the condition that comes after the seemingly is based on what's before the seemingly, which is us. Yeah, we
Yeah.
see something and it appears to be true to us. We see something and it appears not to be true to us. We're it. We're the final arbiter in a way. Yeah, we're the dreaming of the dreaming. That's incredible. We are not. We don't have a spiritual condition. We really are a spiritual condition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah. And so the buck really stops where we are. Yeah. That's where God abides. That's where all these names. That's where they are. Yeah. And so you the attention and interest going out goes back, and then what goes back is just a big space. You don't ride. Paul is like at mile 12. Yeah, you pass Paul way, and you're not there. You know what I mean? Paul is just like a fucking sign on the highway, like 12 miles from where it says you always start. it's just it's a geographical mistake. You know, what's before isn't of Paul. Yeah. Paul
Yeah.
is what's before isn't of thingness or flesh or yeah. And there the lightness is supreme. That's why, like in the blueprint room, everything's much lighter than in the manifestation room. Yeah? You can get out of the drawings of a house a lot easier than getting out of a real house. Yeah? So,
Yeah.
where do you want to work at? Where do you want to work at? Do you want to have to be a life of heavy lifting and getting out of this and that and da da da? Or do you want to see shit before it shows up? Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, do I want to be a master of cleaning up messes, or do I want to live before messes need to be cleaned up? I would rather go the latter form. Yeah? Because I'm a slacker at heart. I don't want to have to do much shit. See my role in it, and you may not have to. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, bro. Thanks for the meeting today.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna say hello, goodbye to everybody if I can.
Kurt would like to chime in with one thing if
Oh yes, Kurt, anytime. Kurt, yes.
Kurt asking you to unmute. If you still want to ask your question.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I just wanted to drop this. I was talking to a guy the other day. This is kind of, I think what you're pointing to is I said, what are you doing, in the morning? He was newly sober. So I asked God to keep me sober, and I said, well, stop doing that. And he said, well, why would I do that? And I said, because you're already sober. I said, why don't you just recognize what's happening right now? And instead of asking for him to keep you sober, why don't you say thank you? Just say thank you. So just recognize what's already happening, right?
Yes.
So that's all. I just want to throw that out there.
Yes, we've had this here, the famous Jono event where I think it was
Yeah,
Jono.
I thought of that. Yeah.
Where he was praying, he was doing the third step prayer, or please relieve me of the bondage of self, but at that point, the prayer was actually hiding the fact that he had been relieved from the bondage of self, because he was bypassing a present tense state with the hopes of a future state. Yeah, and that was a very clear seeing. Yeah, so this is what happens. Yes, like people would always ask me, how many meetings should I attend? I go, this one. The one you're at right now. Don't worry about the 89 later, but this one would be helpful. Yeah, pay attention. So it's that type of simplicity. Yeah, 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 yeah. And a lot of people aren't in the recognition that they're sober because they're still living the narration that they are in a sober person while they're sober. Yeah, it's crazy, but hey, man. The easiest thing can seem to be super hard, which is the recognition of here and now. I mean, we're meeting it 6 ways, 5 ways: hearing, seeing, feeling, tasting, touching, and another way, thinking about it. You would think that would override the machinations of the mental state and what's not happening, which can only occur in one way. But the one way being so dominant overrides the 6 ways. Yeah. And now, here and now seems to be a possibility we may only arrive at by doing incredible efforting and work on our spiritual or other condition, where in fact, that's the basis of all basis, here and now. There's nothing ever happens outside of that. Yeah. And so, yeah, you're a citizen of it. Yeah. Yeah. Not a wannabe citizen, you are a citizen. Yeah. You are of the fourth dimension. You're being rocketed to the fourth dimension is really a narration from the third dimension. You are of the fourth dimension. And you're on a work visa or a vacation visa in the third dimension. All right, thanks, bro. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks. Good seeing you, buddy.
good seeing you. Get me down there soon. Let's go down. All right? Yeah, work on that. I'd like to come down there. Be great. All right, let me say goodbye. Hello to everyone. Goodbye, whatever. We've got Maiko. Thank you, Maiko, from the UK. Tommy, yes. We got Paul. Nice to see you, Paul. He's coming out with the shirts. All right. Fucking, it's gonna be a whipping, but hey, don't start tripping. It's gonna be a whipping. You're gonna be stripping before next Thursday. All right, we got Mike Z, the backbone of Zen Bitch Slap. Sometimes I think I should be concerned about that, but I just let it go. We got Helen C from North England. All right, Helen. Yes? Yes. All right. We got Nan. Nice to see you, Nan. Nan, short for Nanette. I like that. Thank you. We got Joseph C. from France. Nice to see you, Joseph, as always. We got Connor from Dublin. Nice to see you there. Yes. We've got Ruby from Wichita. Let's see. We got John Fa. No, what is this? It says Julie Fa. What happened? Oh, that was a quick transition. All right, Julie Fa. We got Jill. Nice to see you, Jill. Thank you for your donations. Everyone's donations. And if you haven't donated, it's never too late. Yeah, to donate. We got Tom Hudak H. Nice to see you, Tom. Hopefully it's getting warmer over there. Yeah? A little bit? Good. We got Walter. Walter, from the brother from another mother. Jacob. Nice to see you. Nice job, Jacob. Thank you for taking such good care of us at the Zoom. Yes. We got Owen. Nice to see Owen. Yeah, he just puts Irish there. 100% Irish. There you go. That could be a curse. I don't know. I don't know if that's the greatest condition. I've had that and it hasn't worked out that well. But whatever. All right. Alex, nice to see you, Alex. Always a pleasure. Yeah. The hair is going off, Alex, eh? Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty cool. I try to get my hair to look like that before the talks. Yeah. Yeah. We got Stefan on Having Never Left. Nice to see you, Stefan. Rich A with his lovely counterpart. Nice to see you. Oh, yeah, there she, oh, wait a minute. All right, there you go. See you guys. We got Gabe. Nice to see you, Gabe. Yeah. Gabe's at work, I think. No? Thank you, Gabe. Always a pleasure, man. Stay sober. We got Carl. Nice to see you, Carl. Leah. Nice to see you. Leah is getting a little warmer, I guess. Eh? A little bit? Oh, that's good. We got Benjamin. There he is. He's yeah. He's from the Zen Bitch Slap motorcycle gang. He's coming in. Yeah. We got Tanya. Oh, Tanya had such a lovely share. I'm happy to see things unwinding out there. That's great. We got Oliver from Berlin. Thank you, Oliver, for having me at that talk, meeting. Thank you. We got Michael S. from Madeira. Yeah. Kristen. We got Malcolm. Oh, Malcolm. Not in the middle. We got Maggie. Always a pleasure to see the picture of Maggie there. And that's about it. Let's see. No, there's some more. Yeah. Well, listen. Thank you. Thank you so much for today. We'll be around tomorrow night, and Thursday and Saturday, and hopefully we'll start. Maybe we'll have a live meeting Saturday at the house, Mike. Eh? It's Memorial Week, but whatever. We'll talk. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you. Bye-bye.
Good job, Jacob.
Do I ask everybody to unmute, or can they unmute right now?
Hold on, I'll change the settings.
Is that under security?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I got it. There you
Okay.
go.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up,
Are
Gabe?
we still recording?
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, Mike, can